We're live. Hello and welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan, and we're going to be here for the next hour or so. Our panel tonight includes Marcel Kruger, German-born, Cologne-born in fact, controversially, and we'll talk about that in a second, but living in Dundalk. Neil Curran, improv specialist, Dublin, soon to be a dad for the first time. Olga Cronin, from the sheet. We'll be going through some of the guard stuff with Olga later. And Vanessa Poran, who's an accountant and is not an insolvency expert, but knows a lot about insolvency.
I'm new to John.
Okay, but first we're going to go straight to Marcel because Cologne fans this evening have gone on the rampage at the Highbury Stadium. Emirates Stadium, which is the home of Arsenal. Marcel, what's going on?
Yeah. Really, because I'm not a big football fan.
Oh.
I lost you.
Marcel, we lost you there.
No, sorry. That's the things. Like, whenever I try to speak about football, everything freezes on me. Because I'm not a big sports fan altogether. So I don't say anything bad or wrong now because my father-in-law is really a big Cologne fan. But it seems like the Cologne fans, they tried to storm the Arsenal block from the looks of it. And because of that, they had to postpone the start of the game, I think, for an hour or so. So right. I think that's the situation that happened in London tonight.
And have they a reputation, the Cologne fans?
Not really. There's because I think in most major sports in Europe, there are no any, the really hard, how would I phrase this? That type of supporters that would be inclined to violence, they would not be able to enter the stadium there at all. So normally they're not. So
nice.
A bit surprised to see that.
No neo-Nazis then among their...
No, not really.
No.
Okay. Well, this is obviously some Brexit related. Neil, do you know any more about... Actually, Olga, you do have the back decade of the sun. Also, welcome to Johnny Keenan, who's just joined us from his fish tank in...
I don't know. How are you, lads? Are you well? Yeah, it looks like it's kind of one of those rooms where you develop the old-style photographs.
Yeah, very sepia.
You're looking sepia, Johnny.
Yeah, it's very sepia, right? Yeah. Hi, Johnny. How are you?
It's my kind of winter shade, or autumn shade. Very leafy. How are you, Vanessa? Hi, Olga.
Hi, Johnny.
This is what they call a gel, isn't it? Across the light.
I don't know what it is.
Johnny is...
It's just all wrong. It's all wrong. Sorry, I'll sort it out for next week.
Johnny is fresh from One Lovegate, which we'll talk about later. We hope that we can... oh, sorry, by the way, I just want to say welcome to...
We're talking about George Oak, is it? Okay, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, this is... I just want to say welcome to all Broadsheet readers, commenters, and even the trolls. Sorry, I meant to say
There's no trolls. Knock it off, John.
Olga,
the papers. So yeah, the Sun. This is the Sun in the back page. The Sun sports page. So this is the English Sun. Europa League meltdown. It's all gone off. 1 hour delay. Thousands of ticketless Cologne fans invade the Emirates.
20,000.
20,000. Yeah. Arsenal's Europa League clash with Cologne descended into chaos last night as 20,000 German fans invaded the Emirates. Cologne supporters without tickets stormed the turnstiles and forced the kick-off to be delayed an hour until 9:05. Thousands of others bought tickets for the home end, and there were incidents of crowd skirmishes between rival sections. The Metropolitan Police, the Gunners, and UEFA officials decided to go ahead with the match. I'm guessing.
I think so. Cologne is in the Europa League for the first time in ages. I think this is why so many turned up.
Okay.
But then I think this is they were just not prepared for it, and they weren't enough tickets. I assume so. having no information and no background whatsoever. But from what I heard in Cologne, I think it's a big thing that they were playing in London, actually. So I think this is why there's so many fans there, which normally you wouldn't see for an away game for a German team. That's
I mean, that is a huge one. It's like a whole Panzer division or so.
Well, they did a march through London, 20,000 of them. So you should be able to get a clip there shortly.
Okay.
Of them marching through, obviously organised, but I think Arsenal were waiting for them. So I might. I'm just going to find that clip and send it to you there, Olga.
Okay.
And see is that there. But you'll see the clown one in there very quickly.
Okay, well, we just go back to the, Olga, can we just go back to the tomorrow's papers?
Tomorrow's papers, yeah. But we just have the Examiner, the Irish Examiner and the Irish Sun. So the Examiner's leading off there, a quarter of Garda stations can't use key pulse system. So a separate report shows Force has not finished reforms, it says, are done. So it's a story by Daniel McConnell, Elaine Loughlin and Cormac O'Keefe. And basically the Labour TD, Sean Sherlock, got these figures and essentially, so there's like 156 Garda stations that aren't connected to the central nervous system, as Sean Sherlock put it. And so, they're not connected to the Force's IT network. And just the subject there, a separate report shows Force has not finished reforms, it says, are done. That's a report from the Policing Authority. They just released that earlier tonight. And they basically found that only a fifth of the reform actions that were recommended by the Garda inspectors, which the Gardaí said they did, have actually, the Policing Authority are satisfied they're actually done. So just further calls into obviously the questions of, further calls into the credibility, I guess, of figures from the Guards. So and what they're reporting. So there's that, and also there's a small piece there, test scandal. From Cormac O'Keefe, rank and file Gardaí have said the breath test scandal was entirely the fault of Garda management and warned that they would not be scapegoated. So that they released this statement earlier, and there was a really interesting clip that RT have. Basically, Paul Reynolds interviewed John O'Keefe of the Garda Representative Association. And
this has been amazing.
It's amazing. Shall I try and play it? Maybe.
Yeah, please.
It
goes on a bit now, but
it does. I can always stop it, and I'm not even sure this will work, but we'll see if this will work. Sorry, no. Okay. Just let me know if you can hear this, or if you can't, rather, even. Can you hear it?
On the other hand, we're saying the management major guarantees that's 1.4 million falsified breath tests. The blame for that lies at the organisation. It is an institutional problem. It is not a specific Garda problem. Garda did not go out and falsify breath tests. They were put under pressure from both middle and senior management to do so. We know there was competition among divisions, both in Dublin and around the country, to raise these figures. This was then passed down to the apex of the organisation, the ordinary guard, be they male or female. They were told they had to get these figures up, but yet there was no bonus clearly in it for them. Obviously, there's no financial bonus for a Garda upping in figures, and there's no promotional bonus. So the only reason that can be concluded is that they were pressurised to do it, and pressurised they were. Did they falsify them or not? They falsified them under pressure from Gardaí. That was the problem, was middle and senior management put pressure on the members of the ERA to have high figures. They were told if they didn't, or at least it was implied to them, if they didn't have these figures, there could be consequences. So the rot starts at the top. It does not start at the bottom.
Okay, I'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay, can you stop that?
Okay.
Also, can I make a small plea to the panel, just if extraneous silence around the desks and shuffling paper comes out on the broadcast. So there, stop it. Sorry, Olga, that was John O'Keefe.
That was John O'Keefe of the Garda Representative Association.
He's president of the Garda Representatives Association, and their line is that they were put under so much pressure from middle management and senior management, 18% of the force. Mm-hmm. to falsify the figures or to
enhance them, he's saying, yeah.
And that leaves them with no responsibility for those figures. It's basically it's management.
Essentially, that's what they seem to be saying. We will not be scapegoated. I'm not sure how clear it could be, you know. So, yeah, but I mean, like it was. If you play that to the end, it's on RTE's Twitter. But if you play to the end, it's just like a case of, so you did falsify it. No, they enhanced it under pressure. So you did falsify it. No, you know. So anyway, look, you know, I don't know where to go with that. But,
just want to say that taking this credit, I mean, that goes on for maybe
5 minutes,
20 minutes.
5 minutes of the same question not being answered or being answered in such a bizarre way. Neil, I always go to you about the guard stuff, so you know, what's the story?
Inside track.
Well, I falsified nothing if that's what you're suggesting. Well, they say they have evidence of this, so we're eager to see the evidence. But, you know, at the end of the day, the book stops at the top. So I think we have to see what this evidence is to see really, you know, how much responsibility lies with the rank and file and how much, you know, if no responsibility lies with the rank and file. But, you know, reform has to start from the top.
Well, Noreen's gone. I mean, do you remember a few weeks ago we talked about reforming the entire force?
Yeah.
It's time now.
Well, that's what's happening now. If they're going to go with an outsider, and there's even suggestion the outsider brings in a team of senior management, you know, that's where the reform will begin. But we don't need to disband the guards, John, if that's what you want me to say.
Well, I mean, in all but names, that's what's happening.
Is that duck in your throat, Vanessa?
Sorry, guys.
No, I mean, poor Vanessa. She gets very upset when we talk guards. No, we'll see. You know, if we see that reform from the top, we're going to have to clear out all these skeletons in the closet, hold people accountable, and not just brush it under the carpet. So hopefully, whoever they get in has the cojones to do it. There was, you know, some people are suggesting getting someone from law enforcement in Canada and Australia. Because we need somebody strong. I don't necessarily think it has to come from somebody abroad. Like, they don't necessarily have to come from, you know, there's another suggestion of getting someone who was a guard who went to work for law enforcement abroad. We just need somebody who's going to have the authority and responsibility to drive those changes. But this stuff needs to, you know, air the dirty laundry and hold people accountable. I just can't see them following through with holding people accountable, no matter what change happens.
Well, neither management nor the rank and file are taking any responsibility for anything.
Well, yeah, and who's going to be held to account for that? I mean, ultimately, it's management that run the Garda Síochána. So, you know,
Noreen said it was everybody was to blame.
Well, which means no one's to blame. If it's everyone's to blame, then no one's to blame.
Well, the GRA have said it is specifically management and middle management, and that's where the rot is.
Yeah, I mean, we need to see what they're saying. You know, if they're claiming they have strong evidence to show that their hands were tied with this. So I think it's very much in the public interest to see what that evidence is.
Sorry, Johnny, for like your views on the guards are well known.
I think that's fairly common amongst a lot of people. It's not just me, John.
Yeah, no.
I'm saying it to see it, like, I don't have any vendetta against the boys in blue.
Not at all. Johnny, no, what I meant is reflect.
Yeah. I think it's a fork in the road anyway. At long last, no, Sullivan has retired, but she went out on her own terms, didn't she? She was able to negotiate her back pay and her pension, and, like, in fairness, she should have been sacked instead of retiring. So, you know, that's more of it. That's typical Irish culture in relation to establishment figures and institutions. But I would disagree with Neil in relation to, I think someone has to be, it's a very complex country and it's a very complex force. So someone from the outside coming in, I'd be very much against it because of the fact that most of the countries we'd be looking at would be America and Canada probably. And I don't like the idea of Gardaí going around with guns. I appreciate that we need an ERU, all right, but in relation to cops on the beach going around with metal on their sides, nah. And,
I don't think that's been suggested yet.
No, but I have no. Someone from America coming in would, for example, that's probably the likelihood because we take our lead from an awful lot of what happens in America, would be coming in with an American kind of policy. And I don't know where in America that kind of policy works. I think someone has to know Irish culture, has to know the way the force was enacted and how it has been working over the last 100 years. You know, it's still a very young kind of for example, PSNI. You know, that was a good example. The guys that started that came over from South Africa and were able to be influential. But I still don't know how the PSNI works. But I do know the perfect candidate would be someone like Maurice McCabe.
Yeah.
I don't know, would he even take the job? I think he'd be brilliant.
Well, certainly,
yeah, but Johnny, at that level, you need a huge amount of senior management experience, sort of McKinsey, MBA, sort of massive manpower planning experience. So, you know, it's not necessarily sure. Morris has the ethos, and he's got the culture, and he's got the, you know, the vision. Probably.
But we're not looking for a cure for cancer here. We're just asking people to police the people in a very straightforward way.
No, we're not. If you're looking to replace Noreen, you're looking for a senior corporate manager. You know, if you're talking about people policing on the street, that's a different level in the stratum altogether.
No, but that's the ethos of what their job is. I don't know what's corporate mean in relation to Gardaí. What does that? I don't understand that.
Johnny, Vanessa, just one second. I just want to ask Olga. I mean, our issue with the guards from the work that we've done is that a lot of the cold cases are very suspect. A lot of you know, convictions and murders and whatnot over the past 30, 40 years. There's huge issues there that are you know, I think that they keep on recurring in each case, and it goes back for so long that it seems to be.
It predates Noreen and it predates Maurice McCabe, effectively.
Oh, it predates the century. It's. I think it goes right back to the beginning of the force. I do. I believe it is. I mean, I believe it's. As I said before, Conor Brady has a brilliant book on the guards, and I thought assuming it would be lambasting or praising the guards, and but it was just one crisis after another, and really bad stuff. And I don't want to go into any of the details that we've gone through, Olga, but you know, there is evidence that they're protecting paedophiles, that over the years that they've been protecting, you know, the worst of society, really. And you know, there's a huge problem there. Sorry, I don't want to sound so vague, but Olga, go on.
Yeah, and like, I mean, you know, you mentioned a fork in the road there earlier, Johnny, and you know, that is what this is, I guess, but. The choice of acting commissioner seemed to be it was an interesting choice, I thought, for a fork in the road time, if you like. So Donald O'Coulon is the assistant commissioner, and he was chosen as the acting commissioner. And essentially, I thought it was an interesting choice because he was named in the Dáil. He was named in the Dáil as someone who was being accused of being party to a cover-up in relation to collusion of heroin dealing and the Gardaí, and basically, or involved in party to the cover-up. And essentially, Keith Harrison, who is a Garda and who's going to be, it's a module starting on him in relation in the Charlton Tribunal is going to be starting on Monday. Essentially, Keith Harrison made a complaint or made his concerns known about a guard whom he thought was involved in heroin dealing, and he felt Keith Harrison felt that this wasn't being taken seriously and nothing happened. And then several years later, a separate guard, Garda Nikki Kyo, made basically the same complaint about the same guard. And then this was investigated by Donald O'Coulon, and then Nikki Kyo went on to make a complaint to GSOC about the investigation, and that GSOC investigation hasn't been completed yet. My understanding is, or sorry, it's not my understanding, John Mooney in the Sunday Times reported in 2016, I think it was October, that basically this internal guard investigation basically found that Nikki Kyo's concerns were true, at least some of them, and that there was nothing was going to be sent to the DPP. But this report, Nikki Kyo still has not seen this report.
Yeah.
Keith Harrison hasn't seen the report. It hasn't been published. The GSOC report hasn't been complete, as far as I know. So anyway, I just thought it was an interesting choice of acting commissioner at a fork in the road, that a person who was named in the Dáil as having some involvement. We've no idea, but these are the allegations that have been made, and they've been there in Keith Harrison's opening statement and his complaint to GSOC. So, but it's since emerged that he's not going to go for the top job. He's not going to go for the position. So,
yeah. I mean, we can talk about this, and we talk about this every week. But I would, if I were, I don't know, Labour or the opposition or whoever the opposition is, I would call for a reform of the entire force. It would seem pretty obvious, but
yeah, absolutely. But accountability there as well, John. You know, where is the union in all this? If the cops felt that they were what's the word they used, Olga, in relation to the interview there, under pressure, they were.
Oh, the enhanced the figure. Yeah.
You know, they're big men and women. Like, they know the difference between right and wrong. That's probably the reason why they joined the force in the first place. So if they're being asked to do something against their will or against the law, really, essentially, they should go to the union. So where's the Garda union in all this?
Well, the GRA of that's what John Keith is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but there's a good example. I mean, one of the founders of the GRA was.
Yeah, but see, they went out and strike, John.
One of the founders was Frank Mullen, who died recently, who's the almost definition of what a bad lieutenant is. You know, he and as we'll soon discover, anyway, I think the force needs reforming at sort of whole scale. But
yeah,
Marcel, have you any view yourself?
I do, yeah. And just as an example, I think that's what you all mentioned. Like, it's really the problem is really like in all levels of the force. I was reading a piece about how the homeless in Dublin should normally be approached if they're camping out somewhere they're not supposed to camp. There was a piece in the Dublin Inquirer about they're now using the pathway besides the Royal Canal. And eventually there is, for all the guards, I'm not even sure if it's only in Dublin, but maybe throughout the country, they were having guidelines of how to approach homeless people who should vacate their spot, who to contact to offer them shelter for the night and so on. And the whole thing is just like, it was rolled out to the whole force, and they're just following it up like nitty-willy. So it's like, if they're like in the mood for it, they might do it. If not, they just chew the people away. So I think that's another aspect of the whole thing, is like something is being rolled out to the whole force, and then it's just they're acting on it like if they're in the mood for it, you know. So maybe there's something rotten in the state of Denmark, as they say.
Yeah. Neil?
Yeah, like I say, reform from the top down, but we do need somebody strong who knows who can, you know, can reorganize how, you know, we're looking at a massive change in an organization level here, and we do need somebody with the skill set that can do it, but they have to have the authority to be able to do it. And there's no way that the reform can happen by just sticking a few plasters and band-aids on it. Like, we're talking a fundamental reform here that's going to ruffle feathers. It probably could have some people in political corners quite nervous of the prospect. But that's what needs to happen. But yeah.
Well, I was going to say something lighter, but it wasn't really lighter. It was pretty wretched. The George Hook rape. I don't know, excusing or victim blaming. I mean, we've had a week of it. It doesn't look like George Hook will resign. I think that's probably a good thing, because it would have seemed like he'd been resigning at the back of, I don't know. I mean, it just seemed, I would have to agree with Kitty Holland, who was writing in the Irish Times today, saying that it did seem like really a witch hunt after a while. I mean, the statements themselves were just unbelievable, but the reaction was really quite intense. Vanessa, sorry about your coffee, by the way. If you want to sign off, by all means. But if you can carry on, could you?
Sorry, I didn't. I tried for it not to be so disruptive. Sorry.
No, it's all not. But yeah, if you don't feel well enough, just sign off. But what were your thoughts on the George Hook thing? Do you think it was overblown, or do you think it was?
I think there's two stories here. Well, my view in the world, John. I think there's two stories here. I think it's George Hook, just having an old rant and blaming everyone except himself and people like him. Okay? And then there's the other story then, it's the reaction.
Yeah.
I find it extraordinary. Like, I suppose nobody can force a man or a woman to resign from their job unless they're prepared to do it themselves. So I never liked that idea that even with Noreen, about somebody being forced to resign from their job. Either they're sacked because they're incompetent, or they've made a massive mistake, they're summarily sacked. Or, they're given a deal to take because it's more attractive than staying. I never liked this idea of being, forced to resign. There's something never honest about it. But this thing with George, I have to think, like, who does he think he is, telling people to be careful about who they go to bed with? Wouldn't it have been more accurate for him and more honest of him, given his background into broadcasting, to say, actually, you should be more careful of going to bed with an athlete, and you should be more careful about going to bed with an athlete who's a member of a team.
Okay.
Because they'll all want their turn. Now, that might sound very crude and obnoxious and unnecessary, but like, who does he think he is, saying that, this person might have contributed to this rape because she'd already been to bed with this guy who was a member of a swimming squad. So this other guy seemed to think maybe it was his turn, or I don't know what he was really suggesting, but I wonder, does George really need to think, who does he think he is? Like, if he's going to criticise people for who they're going to bed with or putting themselves at risk, maybe he should just mention the fact, well, whatever you do, don't go to bed with an athlete. I don't know.
Olga is a former athlete, actually.
Long time ago.
Olga ran for Ireland, in fact. What were your views on the on this, and how, what Vanessa just said there? I mean,
I thought Kitty Holland. I would have to agree with Kitty Holland's piece. That, of course, George Hook, I didn't in any way think his comments were okay at all. But I did listen to his apology, and two apologies, I think. And yeah, I think, he should be challenged, and he has been called out, and and people say that he's got previous, and he's had similar comments before. But I just didn't feel that I just didn't agree with the call for him to be sacked or whatever. But I thought it was interesting, Fintan O'Toole and Una Mullally's kind of.
That was funny.
Well,
sorry to interrupt you, Alga, but I thought that was funny. I mean, I liked Una's one in particular. I'm not talking on News Talk ever again until. I'm still available, but it's just.
Will you ever appear on News Talk again?
Was I ever what?
Will you ever appear on News Talk again?
I don't know if I'll ever appear on Broadsheet again unless John Ryan. No. I agree. I agree with Kitty Holland's comments. Were spot on as far as I was concerned. But to add to what Vanessa said, I think the third issue here, which is kind of the elephant in the room with it, is the broader issue of the lack of female representation on News Talk, which has also been thrown into the correspondent to the communication. Like since this broke, I set up a stream on my Twitter account so I could read all the tweets that have been going at George Hook since then, and I had to switch it off after a while because it was becoming overwhelming. But I knocked it on today, and there's still people sending out a mix of what you might call professional calls for him to step down to obnoxious and comments and that. But what I was thinking about was, I don't know what his contract is like with News Talk. He's been there from the start. So if News Talk bowed to pressure and decided to fire him, on what grounds could they do that? He's expressed an opinion as disgusting as it was. But would he have a case to sue them? I mean, what's he done? Has he committed gross misconduct in as far as employment contract goes? Has he brought News Talk into disrepute? If he has, how would they prove that if their listenership hasn't changed? So
the sponsor pulled out, I suppose.
I think there's also something to be said for that. George is an archetype. He's an Irish. We all know him. We all know that person.
I don't.
Well, I mean, if you've been to a golf club, you've been to a rugby
club.
Well, I mean, there's a certain Alakadu who would say that. Who you could hear them in Kylie's or whatever.
No, they'd say it amongst themselves in the little corners and the little locker rooms. But they wouldn't be saying it publicly. Certainly not in the last 20 years, John.
Well,
I'm not so sure about that, Vanessa. To be honest, I heard these things in taxis because you were one of the lads, So between men, it's like I hear that all the time. So that's. I don't think that society has changed as much. So.
And that's why Kitty's point is bang on the money, because removing him and silencing him doesn't take away that point of view in society. So I had the thought that maybe News Talk or Hook should have held a panel discussion to talk about why the wider issue of this of the concept of rape culture in society and what that means, and why try and put a bit of thought into why this is prevalent, this kind of talk. So yeah, sorry Vanessa, I disagree. The taxi driver analogy is good. Not all taxi drivers are like that. Just put that out there, Marcel.
No, sorry, I just couldn't help.
But really, the issue here is perhaps about the apology and the calls for his resignation. For George Hook to hold these views for him are, he would say, look, I know what men are like. I know what we're capable of, And what I'm saying to you is that it's not safe. I mean, if that view can't be represented on the airwaves, if we can't hear that, if we're not mature enough to hear that, or mature enough to sort of decide whether it's hogwash or not.
That's not how he framed it, though, John. He did apportion blame. He didn't say you have to be careful out there. He used the word blame.
Yeah, he did.
He did, yeah. He did.
Right.
It's interesting how RTE repeated the apology again today. Did you notice that? On Sean O'Rourke, they played it back as if to go with the knife. You know.
Well, I feel that he does. He reflects a huge constituency in Ireland that, and if they're not heard, or if they feel they're not being heard, what would you say to that, Johnny?
Yeah, well, listen, John, we live in a democracy, and it's not just a cliche or a throwaway term. So people like George Hook do represent a percentage of the population. That's why he's in his job. It's going to hit him now where the pocket is. The advertisers after coming out of the show. But when you look at the people that are hounding them out, there's certain factors within that. Rightly or wrongly, did that to John Waters, did that to Kevin Myers. So Hook is next on the list. Now he's got form. We were talking about him only a few weeks ago in relation to having a go at people from a mental health perspective, and you know, but he's there. He's part of the establishment. You know, he's a Fine Gaeler, like, you know, unapologetically. He one of Dennis O'Brien's lackeys. So there's people that are gunning for him anyway. Now, what he said was completely wrong, as Neil pointed out there perfectly. He did attribute blame to that girl who happened to be in that position in that hotel that night. But there is a bigger issue to be talked about, and I'm not a parent myself, but I can understand that generation. It was literally like the teenager coming down the stairs, and you're not going anywhere with that, wearing that. You know, that's where his school of thinking is from. So
I'm sure that.
And he's very loose as well. I don't think he goes with a script, which is a good and bad thing maybe. But he is a shock jock. He is this American kind of shock jock, says things and wants to be part of the news then afterwards. But he bit off more than he can chew. The apology was obviously had to come. Whether the guy should lose his job or not, he should be brought into a bigger discussion about dealing with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And no one should be hounded out in that regard. George Hook will he represents people. There'll always be someone like George Hook on radio, but there's no point in silencing them. This is where I get pissed off at the liberal left. They won't talk to certain groups, certain factions. They're written off, and that's after creeping into Irish society only in the last year or two. I understand their anger, especially coming from the statistics don't lie in relation to abuse against women. So it's very, very serious. But in silencing George Hook, he's after getting a wide awakening. But he should be part of the conversation in relation to the next generation. Kitty Holland's piece, what jumped out at me most about that was what she said at the end. Was it her daughter that was coming back with stories in relation to teenage boys groping and grabbing women just randomly, and that's kind of very serious in relation to the way young men look at women, and it's all subjective from porn on the internet, and that's probably a real conversation that has to be addressed.
Yeah, but you know what, Johnny? A lot of that has to do with parenting.
Absolutely, Vanessa. Yes,
it starts with parenting. You know, it starts in the home.
But we were,
if young fellas are out there in the street grabbing women because their mother hasn't given them a decent enough clatter at home and teaching them how to behave.
But here's the thing: we didn't grow up with porn around us,
That's right.
it's just so bizarre, No, look,
the RTE guys.
I mean,
if you wanted it, you really had to go your way to get it, you
had to go to Boyle in Roscommon, did you?
That's 3 counties over. Wouldn't go that far now.
Nobody would know.
No, that's not it. No, it's a serious situation, lads, in relation to the way young men are, and women are, young girls as well. This porn music, all that stuff on all those music channels in relation to how they dress and how they're portrayed. The industry, the media and music industry have an awful lot to answer. Obviously parenting, but in relation to how teenagers now are around so much porn, it can't be healthy, and I don't think that there's a serious conversation being had about it.
Sorry, Johnny. No. Right. Okay, they do have access to stuff that you and I didn't have. It's easier to access this more adult content. And if we were watching something that was above later than the watershed, there was murder. I get, when we were growing up. But ultimately, it is all back to the parents and what they allow their children have access to. And it's not so much what they allow your children have access to, it's what you think they're ready to watch.
They're teenagers from 15 years
like
old.
I'm not necessarily very vigilant. Sorry, no. I have a teenager, and I'm not necessarily vigilant on the actual age group, because you'll see something that says 18, but it's 18 because somebody says fuck in the middle of it.
Yeah,
but it'll be 12 on another thing.
Apologies for the language. Sorry, continue this.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. But, the Americans will put 18 on a movie because there's the F word in it, right? But they'll only have 12 on a movie. But they could be open gun, fella getting his head shot off, So, there's an element of kind of just making sure you know what they're doing rather than specifically censoring it. So it does go back to parents. It's not necessarily the internet and having access to all this. It does go back to parents knowing what their children are doing.
No, I don't think Johnny's sort of saying like ban pornography or anything, but what young men are facing is completely different from what we were facing. Like we had, I don't know.
Hang on a second, women are facing the same thing.
No, but that's what we're saying, Vanessa. They
are highly sexualized. There's no doubt about that.
Completely. And they were, Madonna was a sex icon, and back in the 80s.
But you see, we were still terrified of all that. We have reared another generation now that are told, this is not, there's, just do and be what you want to be, and do and be what you want to feel. We didn't come from that environment. Well, I didn't, and I know I'm not the only one here on the screen that came from a different environment. So, we're rearing children to be very different.
Yeah,
Marcel.
I was just thinking.
Sorry, Marcel. Marcel, could you start again?
I was just thinking that probably no 15-year-old is ever going to listen to George Hook. So maybe this the thing is like there are two levels of discussion. There's like when somebody who was a figurehead like this for a certain audience, for a certain age group, but what does that mean for society altogether?
Yeah.
I think Marcel has said something really sensible. The next generation aren't listening to George Hook. So let him eat himself and let him bluster and flute their way to himself.
Well, I felt
if News Talk want to pay him, let him. I don't listen to it.
We don't want a new generation of George Hooks taking his place.
But they're not listening to them.
There was. I'm sorry, John. I just want to mention this. Did you see the PewDiePie thing, which is the exact same thing for the 15-year-olds?
Yeah.
So I'm a bit hopeless at the moment. So maybe us 40 or 45-year-olds were the last resort. I don't know what that is, but
PewDiePie is a YouTube star who said something racist, or there was some
on multiple occasions. He said the N-word in a live stream of him video gaming. He got into he had an anger burst, if that's correct, Marcel, with another gamer and used the N-word. But he previously had gotten into trouble for I think it was some racist views anyway. I think it was anti-Semitic views.
Yeah. He had like these Jewish kind of conspiracy theories a lot as well in his videos. So
yeah, but with the recent one, the equivalent of sponsorship being pulled was one of the game he was playing. The gaming studio invoked the whole he's no longer allowed to play that game on this channel. Whatever the rules around. I don't know what it's called. They invoke some copyright thing around, being able to stream games, so he can no longer play it, monetize it. So yeah, it's kind of similar.
Leather jacket guy. I hope he's okay. He's Ireland's PewDiePie, isn't he?
Much to the disappointment of the trolls, I think he's okay. Interestingly enough, it's going off topic now, but the Rich List show on RTE tonight, the YouTube star, Irish YouTube star, I was number 51.
Did any of us make it?
There was no, and certainly from what I saw, there was no female representation on that either. But the top Irish gamer YouTuber worth quite a few million, Jacksepticeye, where he just plays video games and makes money. There's a job for you. But just Jacksepticeye is his username.
He's from McLeod.
He puts on a massive Irish accent, like a Tom Cruise Irish accent when he's gaming, and that's all he does.
Oh, right, the big Ireland.
But just to get back to, because Marcel raises a valid point, while the similarities between PewDiePie and George Hook, well, the circumstances are similar. PewDiePie is of the millennial generation. We wouldn't expect that behavior from a generation, but yet there it is. So,
like for instance, with Kevin Myers, you're going to get what you're going to get. I mean, anybody who knows Kevin Myers, anybody knows George Hook, anybody knows Simon Dunphy, you know the type of the area that you're going to go into.
Yeah, but that's not the point, John.
No, it's not the point. No.
Like you say something and you provoke it, and how can you throw yourself back? It's way too serious of a subject.
Yeah, but okay.
And, but George Hook had to be part of that discussion to bring that on, rather than silencing him. Because he does speak.
No, I don't think that. I don't think so. I think he sits down with his producer, maybe like the journalists here might know more and better. But I mean, I think he probably sits down with his producer. 20 minutes, a half an hour, maybe an hour before the show, and they spin out what they're going to do, and they'll do 10 minutes here, 20 minutes, and there's 30 minutes, and then try and stretch all that out. I don't think there's too many people in news talk putting words into George Hook's mouth, but certainly not since last Friday. Do you know what I mean? Or prior to last Friday, excuse me. So, I think he was pretty much given say and do what you like,
Oh, definitely.
If you remember Tom Dunn's show and my gosh. Yeah, no, I remember listening to that live and thinking, is there any producer not pulling the plug on this and going to an ad break? Because it's still only been like 2 or 3 or 4 seconds dead air. And it was shocking. Like, it kind of felt like there was nobody in the control booth. That's what it sounded like to me, and I heard it live, Okay. And I wonder, is that the way it is in that radio station? Is there just the lads going in with the microphone and their sandwiches and just going at it for 2 or 3 hours? I don't know. I've never been in a radio station. I've never stopped.
You won't get in with that attitude.
Johnny,
well, do you know what? I tell you one thing, right? I have no problem. Whatever about Una Manali and all them. I have no problem talking to George Hook. I have plenty of stuff to talk to him about. I have no problem going in there in the morning.
I'd be interested in hearing what his listenership is like this week.
Yeah. But look at what boils down to, lads. Broadsheet doesn't have any corporate advertising, so we can kind of say what we want. News Talk, they rely on their advertisers to the advertisers have a certain level of what they want to talk about. Essentially, it's corporate radio. So the advertisers dictate, not the listeners. But the way it's kind of it's coming full circle. Alternative media is alive and well now. You got too much of it almost in relation to podcasts. Our first choice. People want their dose, and there's so much to choose from. The radio is almost dead.
But that's a good no. Yeah, well, I certainly still listen to radio all the time. I mean, we listen. 24 hours here, but what I would say about you've got George Hook and he's on News Talk, right? And he says this thing that's bad, and he's forced out of his job, perhaps, maybe not. And in fact, I don't think he can be enjoying this week. I know he likes publicity, and I know the station probably enjoys the publicity, but I don't think anybody could really be enjoying it. But anyway.
I think he's struggling with it. I don't think he's either enjoying it or not enjoying it. I think he's probably struggling it in that it's an era he's never had to defend or get involved in or be arsed with, because he's just a
anyway, probably enough about George.
Yeah, please.
Johnny, I want to come briefly to you about Johnny last week. We had to postpone One Love end of summer behind concert that was going to native direct provision, and a friend of Johnny's who's going to Russia for some stem cell therapy. But the fallout was pretty nasty. Are you okay about everything now, Johnny? I mean, it's.
It was just, first of all, I just reiterate again that the word didn't get out, so that book has to stop with me. We didn't have enough people. Vanessa, yourself, and Broadsheet, and Olga, and everyone helped get the word out, but it just didn't work, and the running was too short. But we're going at it again, and there's been great support. I went out on the day to see that would anyone show up, and a few did. So we had a good conversation. I played a bit of Peter Tosh for the day that was in it. But yeah, absolutely. But I forgot to mention last week, and I would have to give them a plug. There's a group in Kilkenny. Check them out on Facebook. Kilkenny Solidarity Dinners, and their first Saturday in each month. They've been doing it for 2 months so far. Have been going in and having fundraisers, table quiz, and just open mic nights, and giving money to the people in direct provision. There's some money. Get the food and bring it up, and we'll cater for you. So they had 2 of them in Kilkenny. I think the next one is going to be the first Saturday in Waterford. So that's going to be ongoing. So at least there's something being done for direct provision. In relation to what the guys on Broadsheet said, some of it was a little bit personal, but they don't know me. So I think that we didn't pull that gig lightly. And maybe I'm not the best organizer in the world, but I don't mess people around, and I definitely don't mess artists around, because they're the ones that I'm always promoting. But I just wanted to mention Stephen Garland. That's the biggest problem for me. Well, Stephen was meant to go to Russia in November 2018, but there was a cancellation, so he was lucky to get it. And he's going to have to go this year, or this November, and he needs to raise 50 grand. And we had a few campaigns going. One of them was get that man a pint. So spend a $5, and he's hoping to get 10,000 people to get him a pint. But this weekend, you're going to put it up in the morning, I know, for two tickets for the All Ireland. So you pay €20 for the raffle, and that will go on to help Steve get to Russia for his stem cell surgery, and the chance of winning 2 premium All Ireland tickets.
Sorry, John, and the raffle's on tomorrow. What time?
The raffle's on tomorrow evening, live from Longford, from a pub in Longford. But they can still get their the ticket. So if they go to stopmyppms.com is the website, and all the information's on that. There's about 3 different campaigns. Jason Bourne is playing next Saturday, 23rd of September in Longford. Okay. So that's going to be a really good gig, and all the proceeds are going to the fund. So that's disappointing in relation to going back to your initial question about the One Love thing, because it was for 2 specific purposes, sure. And those purposes still need to be supported. Okay. But the gig won't happen until next year. So I want to say thanks to everyone who supported it, and post in the next few months we'll have a date nailed. So
thanks, Johnny. Thanks a lot. Marcel is holding an event and sent a press release today, and both myself and Ollie read it, and we didn't understand what it was about. So we've asked Marcel to come on and explain, not just to explain the fans and the Cologne fans, but to explain.
Yeah, I try and do like a condensed 4-minute plug now to break it all down.
Are you a Cologne fan, Marcel?
No, I'm from there. I'm not a sports fan at all. I am a Churchill fan who said no sports when he was asked what sports he does.
Well, tell us about the events, though.
I'm sorry about the team.
That's what they do.
It's basically an event series that my wife, who is an arts creator, also from Germany, who lives with me here in Dundalk. So we're both migrants, and we are organizing a series of events where we invite people mostly from Germany, from the north, to explore borders and the corridor between Belfast and Dublin. This is why our thing is called The Corridor. And the first series of events we're doing next week is to bring in over a German, they are called the First German Electrophonic Orchestra, and they're making music with hair dryers, they're making music with lawnmowers and so on. So this is why they're called electrophonic. And we bring them together with artists in Belfast. There's a fantastic man. He's an artist and inventor named Telly. We've got Eve Ward here in Dundalk, who's a visual artist. She's going to explore with them. And in Dublin, we're going to have Sean Hillen, who's also quite well known. So, and they're all going to work with this German electrophonic orchestra to explore the corridor situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marcel. No, just please go on. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's it. And we have the first event in Belfast on Sunday. And if you go to thecorridor.ie, you'll find our program. We've got lots of fancy Facebook events as well. So Belfast, as I said, with Telly, who invented a machine to transmit that orchestra to the public, but you have to bring your old radio to listen to his transmitter.
Okay.
And that is at...
Like an old, any radio that might have home.
Exactly, and that starts at 3 p.m. at Belfast City Hall this Sunday.
Wow. So,
Marcel, that's cool.
Would an alarm clock radio do, or is it just
as long as you can receive, it will do.
Brilliant. That sounds fantastic. And what happens to your radio then? Does it join in? I mean, is it part of the... So
I'm not the inventor. I have no idea how the whole feedback loop works out in the end, but you can listen to the orchestra on the street and on your radio if you're inclined to do so.
That sounds brilliant, Marcel. And you and your wife just organized this, just felt that this was the right thing to do here?
Yeah, it was more like for us to engage with our new hometown, and then being foreign people in Ireland, and then we've got like the potential Brexit border 5 miles up the road from here. So it was just interesting to see like what's going to happen. And then we'll have, for example, in November, we'll have a reading with a man named Garrett Carr, who walked the whole border between the Republic and the North. And then we bring in a man from Berlin who walked the whole former Berlin Wall, to have them sit together and have a chat about the whole border thing.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Well,
we should learn from him, actually.
Well, it's so true. Well, Marcel, we'll follow this with interest, and we'll do a post on the site in the morning.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks very much.
Neil, any improv shows coming up?
No, I've nothing to plug. Well, just every Sunday and Monday, the Tightrope Improv in Anshaw on Camden Street. But no personal projects at the moment.
That's Monday to Tuesday. Is that Monday to every Monday and Tuesday?
Every Sunday and Monday in Anshaw on Camden Street, we the Tightrope different improv acts every week.
And it starts at
8 o'clock, 7:45 both nights.
Both nights, okay. And your wife is currently pregnant and expecting on the 26th. So best of luck, Neil.
It's twins, isn't it, Neil?
No.
I heard it was twins. Olga said it was twins.
Don't mind what Olga says.
Well, Marcel, good luck with your project. Johnny, it was great to speak to you. Just say good night to our panel: Johnny Keenan, Marcel Kruger, Neil Curran, Olga Cronin at the sheet, and Vanessa Foran. Thank you very much. We'll be back on site tomorrow, and we will be having our show next Thursday. There is something I wanted to say, though. If anybody's watching this on the repeat, and if you suffer from depression or if you're struggling with depression, we were thinking of doing a show with people who are in the same boat and just having a chat late of a Monday night. If you're interested, contact us on Broadsheet at broadsheet.ie. I'll have more details on the site tomorrow, or we'll have more details on the site tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you very much. Have a good night, and awkward silence.